Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you for your willingness to be here. I just want to remind everybody that there's not just two of us here, there's three of us here, right? So God's going to take this wherever it needs to go.
For sure.
Yeah. Would you be willing to share with us the parts of your story that illustrate the struggle in your life, whatever part of your story you want to start with? What is it that, what about your life would be helpful for other people to hear?
Like before loss of children?
Yeah, you can give us a little bit of your background. Where'd you grow up? What was your family like? That kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And just general information.
I was born in Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma, and raised there, pretty much. And I had a really dysfunctional situation going on, so marriage, divorce, those kind of things, probably lots of daddy issues, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Got into drugs and alcohol and stealing cars and doing crazy things at a very young age. But I did meet the Lord at 9 years old, which I'm so grateful for. I came home from school, was dropping my backpack off, and my mom was cutting vegetables and said, "Do you know who Jesus is?" And because she was cutting vegetables, I kind of was like, well, is he coming for dinner? Because I had never actually heard of Jesus. And when I asked her that, she gave me this really concerned look and started taking me to church pretty much the very next weekend. It wasn't too long, probably not even a year, before I heard a message myself and wanted to walk down myself and accept Christ. And it was in a Baptist church, so they really want to make sure you know what you're doing, and afterwards took me in a room and asked me all kinds of questions and made very certain that I understood what I walked down for, and I felt that whole situation. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I really believe God got a hold of me major and pulled me towards him. But because I couldn't really read and write very well, and I was always getting suspended from school and doing crazy things, I didn't know to stay in my Bible or read my Bible or understand that was really his word to me. And so I quickly got off the path for quite some time. And right when I turned 17, I decided, since I graduated high school, thank God, just barely, I decided to move to Branson, Missouri to do singing and dancing, Patsy Cline stuff right away, because I've always danced and sang and impersonated and all those kind of things, and I wanted to make it real in my life. So I moved there for about 4.5 years, and I met my first husband. We got married at 19. I was just very young, very naive, wanted to be taken seriously for a change. So I thought that would help. Oh, if I get married and, if I look like a respectable married person and whatever, I would be taken more seriously. And we were together almost 5 years. It ended in divorce. It was very tragic. And he ended up dying a year later on my birthday, which was really odd. So that kind of freaked me out, and I didn't want to get married again, didn't really want to try that. But I met a drummer that I was doing Patsy Cline for an Opry house, and we dated for a really long time. I got pregnant when I was 24, and I got so violently ill, and everybody was like, well, you're pregnant, that's what pregnant women have, those issues, they're going to throw up and they're going to be sick and all that kind of stuff. And when we went to go do an ultrasound, finally at 16 weeks, the baby was non-viable. It had passed away, and it was called a molar miscarriage, which is pretty intense. And I was really actually on like my deathbed and didn't even know it until right then, because when she couldn't find the viable heartbeat and realized that the womb was continuing to grow as if the child was alive, but the toxins from the death were making me deathly ill. I had to, because I'm a kind of a starving artist at different points in my life, I didn't have insurance. And so the doctor, wonderful doctor, said, listen, told my mom and me, I'm going to make you an appointment right now at an abortion clinic because they do D&Cs the same as we do, but it will be $6,000 to do it here. And it would be in the hundreds to do it there. And I'm going to call it in and have you do that right now. And of course, I wasn't even thinking straight. I was sick and hurting. I just wanted to get well. So we traveled 30 minutes south and went into an abortion clinic where that was the first time I really even was having a judgmental moment, that I had to really talk with God about, like, oh my gosh, I'm here with all these women maybe wanting to get these viable babies out, and mine's non-viable, and I want it to stay, and I have to, do this. And so I just sat there needing God the whole time while really watching, couldn't help but see everyone that's sitting there with you, doing what they're doing, and just the Holy Spirit really laying on my heart that we were all in there for different various reasons, whatever they were, and to just be loving and kind and get through this, however I could. I ended up having to get 2 D&Cs, so it scraped my tissue pretty good and scarred it pretty good, so I couldn't have babies anymore naturally. If I was going to get pregnant, if it was going to happen again, I would have to have C-section from that point on. And I didn't think I could get pregnant. It was just a lot of scar tissue from that. But about 5 years later, I really prayed and prayed and prayed. Lord, I want a baby. I want to be a mom. And I ended up getting pregnant with Jackson. And I was sick for a little bit at the beginning, but nothing like before, and everything went really well. I did have to have a C-section with him. He was just a few weeks early and had to go into NICU. He had tore my lining with one of his little tiny fingernails, so interesting. But we then had moved to Nevada, obviously, and were doing singing and different things in a band, doing casino work. And so I was gone a lot during his formative years, which I really regret, actually. But everything was fine and normal, and he was a normal little boy, super talented, had the most amazing, perfect pitch voice, like my mom and like myself. It just kind of passed on right to him, which was such a blessing to hear. And once we were done with our stint in Laughlin, Nevada, about 45 minutes outside of Las Vegas, we moved home to Oklahoma so that Jackson could be around my mother, his grandmother, and some other family members, and grow up around people that were family, and take a break from that extreme performance life. And when he was 5, he started having the worst headaches, and we had just moved there just a few months before. So I took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, he's probably, because of the altitude change and the humidity and those kind of things in Oklahoma, he's probably having allergies and sinus and those kind of things. So he put him on like allergy medicines, sinus things for his nose, and it helped for maybe a couple days, and then it was worse and worse, and we kept going back, and literally like on paper, it was like 30 times of visiting doctors to find out why he was having such horrible time with his head. And so we kept doing the allergy medicine. They never tested him for allergies, what allergy that could be, you know. We kept asking if they could or would, and whatever. But then his eye turned in. And so we thought, okay. And it just happened pretty much overnight, one night, literally like that, where his eye was just turning in. And so I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to have to go to the eye doctor and get that fixed. And, you know, I didn't know with lenses or whatever they do. And so we made an eye doctor appointment, and our eye doctor said, no, Emily, this is something else. This is not anything I can fix. Let's get a CAT scan. And so it took about a month for him to be able to get in for the CAT scan. And once he did, sadly, the guy doing the CAT scan that day was very new in his field, and he just really didn't know what he was looking at. And so he ordered an MRI, and that took another month to get that. So when we went to get the MRI, right after they did it, he wasn't even off the bed yet. Somebody came out to my mom and I and said, are you Jackson's mother? And I said, yes. And he said, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but we're going to get you an oncologist right away. Your son has a cancer that we most likely will not be able at this juncture to help, and you have maybe 7 months with him left. And of course, we're just sitting there kind of like, that's not really happening. This is not happening. And so you just kind of go into a shock I can't even explain it really. And my mom was just couldn't say anything, and she's never a loss for words. So, we were in another place. But when he got off the table, of course, and came outside to see us, to see our reaction, I'm sure disturbed him. But we were trying to keep it together for him too, because we're talking about just a really formative brain here that's very young and doesn't need that burden and is carrying it already, So anyways, we went to see the oncologist pretty much right away, and she explained what it was. It's DIPG, which is diffused integrated pons glioma. And there's a lot of research at different places I really can't mention right now on where that comes from and how that happens, which was another shock also. But they did some eye surgeries on him to spring his eye back, but the glioma, it's on the pons, and it's like a cauliflower. So it's on the pons, and then it starts integrating into the brain. And the reason why his eye turned in was it was pressing on his sixth optic nerve. So that was the reason why his eye turned in. And then other things immediately started happening pretty much in consecutive, weeks. He had to go through lots of radiation. They wanted to do chemo. I'm kind of holistic in a lot of the things that I do, so I was very against what I had been reading about chemo. But I was I feel nagged into it eventually. Did one chemo, and he ended up having a stroke on that round. So of course I said no more, absolutely no more. He had to be on steroids, which made him gain 35 pounds, and he did not recognize himself in the mirror anymore and would not look at himself anymore in the mirror. Also something that was interesting with the way this cauliflower cancer, it pressed on other nerves that apparently we're not able to access normally without that pressing. And it actually made him flourish in some areas too, like in art. I paint, and so he wanted to paint with me. Ended up being a better painter than me in like no time. Sold his art during this time. Just incredible things he did. He was just so beautiful, just a beautiful spirit. he loved the Lord. He found the Lord, and we discussed that much. And he said that he felt like God and the devil were battling for him, and that he realized that. At 6 years old, by the time he did pass away, almost before 7, but for a 6-year-old to say some of the things that he said was just, it's, I don't know how to describe it. He was an old soul already, kind of, just very intelligent beyond his years, and such a giving and kind person, So I miss all that, and every year I miss, what his shoe size would be like, or what girl he might be interested in, or what, thing he would be up to. I feel very blessed to have had him in my life, but it's hard every day. I live, but I grieve with that, and I'm trying to find a way to live and grieve at the same time, because it has to happen. You can't make it go away. But during the time of all that, we had a lot of family and friends gather. My church, who was not equipped for that type of loss, really pulled together with their resources, because churches do have resources. They just don't really know how to allocate them, I think, to different areas until it happens sometimes. And my church was just amazing with everything they did. We got to hold the funeral there at the church. Hundreds of people came. I was in shock by it. It was beautiful. And really helped me with a little bit of counseling afterwards for several months that they did not have to do. And I really appreciated those things. On another note, I had a lot of Christian people telling me that it was my sins from my past and how bad I was that killed Jackson. A lot of Christians also telling me that I don't have enough faith because Jesus wants to heal everybody, and that's what he came to do, and so I don't have enough faith, and I don't know him enough, or I'm not praying hard enough, or I'm not focused, or all those kind of things. Had friends that say, how are you not angry at God? Why are you still even talking to God? I'm sure God could have taken a beating if I wanted to scream and yell and throw a fit, but I just never felt that way about it. I always felt like he was right there with me. And at one point, I felt like he directed me to how much he understood how I felt because he lost his son. And that he knew exactly how I felt.
I love that you started talking about your family with, her name is Grace, right?
The child that yeah.
Your little girl. And I think one thing that you could help women with, particularly men too, is I think that many women, a daughter lost a baby, and she never talks about it. Doesn't acknowledge it. It was part of her life. Can you talk about 4 women who have gone through that?
4?
Either for women who have gone through
4
this,
women,
either an abortion or lost a baby without their choice. How is it that you hold on to her? Because it's a painful thing to hold on to that, right?
Very.
So how do you hold on to that memory?
Well, I find that for me, first of all, we named that baby Grace. We didn't know if it was male or female. We weren't able to tell. But we named that baby Grace whether it was female or male. But with Grace and Jackson, I did not want to sweep anything under the rug, put their pictures in a box. That was a very real time in my life. and so many others. And we need to remember that's what we have is our memory, our our channeling of those things. And when you suppress that, it really can't be suppressed. You're not doing a service to yourself to suppress it. What's been better for me is, even as painful as it is, whether you do try to suppress it or not, you must face it. And I think it's more beautiful for our family to continue to see these pictures. I have them all over. My son now currently absolutely knows all about Grace, absolutely knows all about Jackson, is still wearing some of Jackson's clothes, is still playing with some of his toys, and it's important to hold those precious moments within yourself and bring them to God all the time with, however that pain is striking you on that day. There'll be signs that say Jackson Street right there, trigger, or, going to a supermarket or a game or a show and somebody says, is that your only child or whatever? And are you supposed to say, yep, only this one, and just forget what you had? Or are you supposed to say, well, I have 3, I've tried a plethora of things because I've been asked so many different times. And Quinn knows so much about them, it would be wrong for me to say just him. It might mentally disturb him if I do that, And then it disturbs the people if I tell them, well, I have 3. Well, where are they? How old are they? Well, 2 of them have passed on. And they, have a reaction, and then I have to react to their reaction. And there's all this thing going on. But sometimes, a lot of times, God brings such an awesome discussion out of it, another cleansing aspect of it, to be able to talk about your children, to be able to show a picture of this child that was here. Is, I think, all part of the healing process. I think it needs to be there, for me anyways. I did plenty of tattoos and needles just to try to still feel like I'm alive, go through some pain. I felt very numb in a lot of areas. I'm still sort of numb today. I have to pinch myself a lot in different ways to wake up, because it's a tragedy. It's a trauma. It feels like a mental disability, really.
Is there any good in your grief?
Yes, there is good in my grief. I think just being able to go to the Lord and be comforted with the kind of comfort you can't get from anyone else. You can't get it from yourself. You can't get it from your, family or friends, not in that way. So there is good. And I feel like I feel closer to Jackson even still. I feel close to him. I know that he's with the Lord. And, I think if he was asked if he could come back, I don't think he would, So there's also good in it to share with other people who have lost children. It helps me to know that someone understands my non-filtered process now, or kind of the way I look at certain things today, and for them as well, to know that somebody has gone through that and can just talk about their children, because nobody really wants to talk about the deceased. They don't want to talk about that. They're alive, and so that's almost just not even recognizable, or how do you talk about that,